Morning, members of the Appropriations Committee. Representative Henderson, Representative Larson, Representative Sherwood, Representative Stith, Representative Walters, Representative Zwanesser, Senator Anderson, Senator Garou, Senator Nethercott, Senator Salazar, Co-Chairman Kinski, Chairman Nicholas. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum. Mr. Chairman, on your plate, a couple of members asked when we walked through the ARPA bill for some additional insight about the existing Senate File 66 from last year appropriations relative to ARPA, as well as a little bit of history. So we tried to fit that all on one page, and the first page you're well aware of, correct? It's a one-page double-sided memo. It's that second page that's colored, I think, that will be very beneficial for your colleagues on the floor. We included what the appropriation was last year, the page and line number that they appear in this draft. Obviously, those first two columns are going to change because when this becomes a formal bill. And then the obligations on the far right. In particular, those coded in green are eligible to move funds. Yellow, they may be able to move some funds, but express caution. And red, those funds are obligated in one form or another, meaning they have grants that have been approved. Maybe they haven't been encumbered, but they have had conversations and approvals regarding the grants. Let me walk through just a couple of them. So on page 3, line 14 and 15, you have the governor's discretionary health response. You've already taken that $45 million. So that's an example of where you have already reduced that in the bill. You also reduced a second green line, the Wyoming Home Services, because it was ineligible for ARPA funding.
So discretionary health response, it's green, which would tell one of my members that that money's up for grabs.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. And you've already grabbed it.
Okay, so they'd have to reverse our action and then, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I'm following you now. Okay, good.
Now these, we wanted to give everyone equal footing on the floor. The requester. Mr. Chairman, I think the bottom 4 that are in green have not been touched. So for all of your information, we have information from the University of Wyoming over the weekend that they do not intend to expend that $500,000 on the College of Health Sciences study. You'll recall that was a study for a PA program, particularly in central Wyoming. Connect Wyoming is a little bit different. That is $25 million for broadband. There is full intention to move forward with broadband, but nothing has been done. Meaning there's been no grant application process. If a member wanted to go grab that money, there's nothing prohibiting that. Only politics. Another great example is on item number 20.
Green.
Also, the University of Wyoming indicated to us that it's unlikely that they will expend any of those dollars for inflation.
This year or next year or ever?
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that. In speaking with the University of Wyoming, they indicated that going through the ARPA process, they didn't feel, and CLA, the executive branch, didn't feel that it was ARPA eligible. So similar to the YHS program, it won't be used because it's not felt that it's ARPA eligible.
So that, I mean, I don't know if that's green, or theoretically that would move back into our 33 million.
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly correct. So all of these could be used for another purpose is our point. So
But
the
but
green,
that includes the green one on top?
Mr. Chairman, yes, and you already have. So
Yeah.
you've already taken that money
So that's,
and repurposed the first 2. And we're just highlighting, hey, there are 4 more. You technically
see.
could do that too.
They could reverse our action and put the money to another purpose. So where's the amount that we left standing? Oh, this is just Senate File 66. Never mind. Go ahead, Don.
Mr. Chairman, one last item on this is there's about 145,000 of the $150,000 that was provided to the judicial branch for purposes of PPE or protective equipment that they do not anticipate expending. So we wanted to provide the same information to all members in case you wanted to repurpose those funds. Now, the yellow category is yes, but you can see some of those, meaning if a member on the floor wanted to appropriate funds, say from line 12, that's the WIN program of 6.4 million. Technically, about half of that money is available. It would mean there would have consequences, meaning the WIN program would not be funded for the second year. But, you know, technically, if one of your colleagues said, hey, I have a higher priority, those in yellow, you technically could grab the obligation amounts.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
when is, that's the nursing program? Okay.
We coded it yellow for a reason, to at least express caution when doing that, meaning there are ramifications.
So, when you say yellow, it has not been obligated, but I mean, but obviously they're planning around it and they're in the process of obligating a lot of these different ones. Correct?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, that's correct.
So it's similar to pulling the rug out of what we did for some of these folks.
Yes, and going back to the Connect Wyoming too, that Don referenced, that's 25 million that is coded as green on here right now. But the executive branch communicated to us that it's their intent to use that money as matching funds for IJA, the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act grants for broadband. They just haven't received that IIJA funding yet, those grants. So they haven't been able to expend it or obligate it yet. So that's one.
So on those funds, we direct it that it was to be used for matching? I think, yeah, I think that's correct. So in that sense, I don't know if I would code that green.
Yeah, and maybe our color coding is
Yeah.
subjective. The point is, if any member wanted to take that money and use it for local government water, nothing is prohibiting them from doing that. It is our threshold.
Well, I was thinking that we would make this available, but before we do, I think we want to work with the color coding a little bit. So that we have an explanation that says what is committed and what it's committed for.
Mr. Co-Chair, and I asked for this. I want to keep it as is for the Senate floor, and you guys can do what you want for your floor.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I also believe you have a large, actually, I'll turn to Hank and he can explain the other documents you have before you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you also have before you
That's the big guy.
a large, it's tabloid sized, correct? And this is just showing, I would say it's a supplement to the memo that we just went over. This is just showing actually what's showing up in WOLFs in the Wyoming Online Financial System that's been expended. So the top part is the revenue assistance. Then you had about 20 million, 20.1 million in discretionary expenditures. And then the rest, that bottom half, the bottom portion is the ARPA direct funds that came out of Senate File 60.
I have to signpost for me where you are on this giant sheet. And when you say
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, my apologies. I'm mostly on this bottom half that says less 2022 Senate File 66 engrossed. And that's where we see the expenditures that are mostly showing up on here. But for example, you have going down to Office of State Lands and Investments,
Which number? is it?
line 16, number 16. That's the Health and Human Services Capital Construction. None of that has been expended, but that's been obligated by the SLIB. So it's not going to show up in WOLFs quite yet as encumbered. but it has been on our memo. We showed that as red due to the fact that it's
Right.
been obligated by the SLIB.
And Mr. Co-Chair, I want this because I don't want I don't want my members to, one, waste their time asking for things that they can't do. And two, and then I don't want them to feel like, well, everything I put in there, you can't do because it's already spent. And so I just want to signpost for them. If you're interested, this is where you can do it. I don't want to waste time of fiscal staff having to go out and explain, no, here, let me show you that money's already been spent. So I just want to be able to direct them, say, if you're interested in that reallocating, here's where you can go, here's where you can't go, here's where you might go.
Well, I don't disagree with that, Mr. Co-Chair, but what I'm saying is, for example, let's just take Wyoming Connect. Those funds were intentionally created by action, and we knew that they wouldn't be expended by now because it's the process of waiting for the IIGA dollars. And what we wanted to use ARPA dollars to match those dollars because they allowed us to do it, and we wouldn't have, because we're going to have to do the IIGA. It's either going to be with ARPA dollars or general fund dollars. So that was our decision as appropriators to say, let's use our ARPA money for that. And not make it general fund dollars next year after the rules come out. And so to me, I think that explanation has to be understood as opposed to just having a green light to say this money isn't expended and you can change the purpose for it. Because you're going to have to go into that explanation no matter what.
Yeah, that's right.
So it seems to me that explanation ought to be on this sheet. So that if we can pass this out before the bill tomorrow. But I just think it needs to be updated to see what our actions were and why. So I'm not sure it's green. I would call it yellow, frankly. Because it's, as far as we're concerned, it's been set aside for a specific purpose, which is as I just described.
Well, Mr. Co-Chair, maybe staff, we've got a little bit of time. They can prepare for those that you feel need to have a footnote. They can prepare a footnote just on a separate sheet of paper and all.
Well, it could be right here. And we can turn this into a legal if it needs to.
We're not supposed to use legal paper.
Go
Here they phased it out.
ahead.
So on that Air Financial Service, I'm not understanding why that's not all obligated because we know that was there to help fund that over 2 or 3 year period of time, the obligation.
Which are we on, Mr. Co-Chair?
We're on the colored sheet in the second yellow one that says 21.
Okay.
Go ahead, Don. Oh, I mean,
Hank,
Hank.
old buddy.
Mr. Chair, Representative Larson, that's shown as yellow only because that is what shows up currently in Wolf's. It shows that they've expended 1.05 million.
Well, expended. So, Mr. Chairman,
But it's been up.
for me, I'm trying to understand. To me, expended is different than obligated.
So what we're saying is that Wolf isn't necessarily.
No, Mr. Chairman, on the large 11 by 17,
Yeah.
all of that is inclusive of expenditures and encumbrances. If there is a contract out there that says that the state of Wyoming is obligated
Yeah.
to those funds, it is included on there.
I see.
Those funds, so technically, if a member wishes to expend those funds for another purpose, we are not breaking any obligation.
Yeah, you have to reverse
The
current.
expectations, yes, but not the obligations or encumbrances or that sort.
Okay.
Well, not only expectations, but what it amends what we did in the last ARPA.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
follow up on that air transportation one. If you look at the colored sheet, it shows obligated of a little over $1 million. And then if you look at the large 11 by 17, it shows it's at 5.9 million in the Wolf system as of 12/31. So there's maybe I'm reading the different lines, and I don't mean to question the work, but I think the point is that these things are obligated. They're just not showing up as fully obligated in the Wolf system, but the agencies have them fully obligated
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Representative Walters, that's correct. And I think going back to the Health and Human Services Capital Construction, that's an example that where Wolves didn't have these obligated encumbered quite yet. But the SLIB has taken that action. So that's why you'll show that as red, page 4, lines 13 through 14. So yes, that's a good example.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
my question is the reverse. He pointed out that this air service financial assistance has a $5.9 million encumbrance on Wolf's, and that's not showing in the multicolored sheet. It's showing 1 million in obligations. What's the difference? Other than $4 million.
Please.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Co-Chair, I can answer that. I think where this happens to be off is you see that we have on right above the air service in the colored sheet, we have technical needs for WyoLink. I think the way it looks at in Wolf is by unit, I believe this, and so I believe that those two numbers would add up to that 5 million that we're talking about. So, and I think this, it's broken out a little differently on this sheet. So my apologies on that. And I can confirm that, and we'll take a look as we update this memo that you have before you, the colored sheet, and make sure that this is all correct. But I believe that those two together would make that 5 million that Representative Walters referred to. My apologies, though.
Okay. Further questions on the two sheets?
To the wind.
So obviously, this is going to take a little time for us to run through this thing, and so so either on adjournment or perhaps first thing in the morning, maybe we can sit down and kind of work through these so we can have something we can hand out. So we'll figure that out when we're done tonight. All right. Anything else on these two? Any further questions for Don or Hank?
There's a lot of work, but we've almost spent $1 billion.
A second billion.
Second billion.
All right, so when we're done, remind me about that, Don, before I head for the door. Okay, next, let's go to, are we ready to roll, Don? Please.
Mr. Chairman, you are. You can take either the CapCon bill or the ARPA bill first. You have fewer amendments that I'm aware of on the ARPA bill.
Why don't we start with the ARPA? Okay. Ready? Let's get adjusted here. So what I'll do is just take motions from the floor, I think, as opposed to walking through a page by page.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, please.
Earlier, we as a committee had eliminated a $2.2 million workforce services grant for the hard to employ. And we did that because we heard the agency say they hadn't finished standing up the program, so we assumed that it was unnecessary. But there was in the governor's proposal, one particular proposal that was unique, which is the hard to employ program. And that was for $2.2 million. And so I'd move to restore that 2.2 million to workforce services of ARPA funding for the hard to employ program. And I've got some other senators here who know a little bit more about it than I do, and they can weigh in on that as well.
That's good. Okay, is there a second? Moving second, discussion. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. Any other motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Please, Representative Sherwood.
thank you. I would like to move that we add $5 million to the local government account with an earmark that they be used for infrastructure related to unmet affordable housing needs.
Mr.
Moved and
Chairman,
seconded by Senator Nethercott. Discussion.
which agency is this going to go to for administration? I presume we're going to have competitive grant process.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're gonna use the existing process that the SLIB has set up,
SLIB. Okay,
OSLI has set up
thank you.
for local government, number 17.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everyone understand the motion? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Any other motions? Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to just simply add language that would say the governor may use any ARPA reversions to pay for any or all portions of the Goshen irrigation tunnels. And any ARPA funds that are used would then replace the Water 2 funds that were appropriated to this project, and those Water 2 funds would revert back to the LSRA where they originate.
Is there a second?
Mr.
Moved and
Chairman.
seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I've asked my Senate colleague about this, and you know, that part of the state, this tunnel is very, very important. The money has been appropriated. And this specific amendment was not reviewed with my Senate colleague. And so ultimately I might be a yes, but I'm gonna have to be a no now.
So my understanding of this amendment is that it doesn't in any way, shape, or form impact the $23 million. That's there. It's never going to go away. If there happens to be residual leftover ARPA dollars, it would just substitute it out. And that with ARPA dollars and supplement where the money came from was the general fund. Is that a fair statement?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. And the reason I bring this is this tunnel affects about 50% of the acreage in Wyoming. The other 50% is in our neighboring state of Nebraska. And our neighboring state is paying for their portion of this project, which is still renovating the same 2 tunnels using ARPA dollars. So to me, it makes sense that the state of Wyoming would fund their portion in a similar fashion. All this does is say, if the governor chooses to, the project is fully funded through Water 2, assuming the water construction bill passes this year. That I can't predict. Don't see any reason it wouldn't. But assuming it passed, that portion of it passes, the project is fully funded. All this amendment does is say, if the governor chooses to, he would have the ability to use reverted. So for example, off the little colored sheet we just saw, some of those dollars may not be fully expended. The governor could use those dollars if he chose to replace the Water 2 or LSRA dollars, say one and the same, to pay for portions or all of this project. There's nothing mandating it, and it does not slow this project at all. The project is still fully funded in another mechanism. It just allows for the replacement to occur and save our LSRA dollars.
Mr. Co-Chair,
Go ahead.
I understand all that, and I understand also that the prior attempt to amend had some representations that when my colleague research turned out not quite to be right, which puts her doubly on edge. Had you reviewed this with that particular colleague, and you know how sensitive this project is, and that colleague had signed off on it, I'd be a yes. But just as a matter of courtesy to a fellow senator, I just have to be a no. I'm sorry.
Okay. Any further questions on the motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Representative Drew.
Thank you. A question for the bringer. So I'm trying to get a handle on this. So you're talking about reverted dollars. So in no way, any encumbrances that have already been made of general fund dollars through water accounts would be affected in any way. But they wouldn't even have to go through any application process. You're talking about reverted ARPA dollars that came back to the governor, could be repurposed to this to match out any of those dollars. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe you represent that correctly. This is only related to reverted ARPA dollars. So over the next year or 18 months as ARPA projects and whatnot are allocated, and maybe it's 10 million in one of them and they only spend 8.5. So you'd have $1.5 million, for example, available. The governor, if he chose, does not have to, if he chose, would be able to swap out general fund dollars that are currently allocated to pay for this project and use ARPA dollars to pay for this project. So it's only ARPA dollar reversions that would come forward. And again, the project in the water construction bill this year is currently fully funded with general fund dollars. So this just gives flexibility. No shalls in here, no mandates, just flexibility to spend ARPA dollars versus general fund on this project if the governor so chooses.
Okay, further questions? Further questions? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
That motion carries. Any other motions? Representative Larson.
In the local government funds that are already appropriated, we have $50 million. I'd like to set aside 7.5 million of that under that program, but to be used for memory care units designed to limit isolation, designed to help slow the rapid progress of dementia or other types of diseases, dementia type diseases or other mental health issues like depression.
Is there a second? Second. Moving second in discussion.
Mr. Chairman, who's going to run this memory care unit?
It's my town, Lander. It's owned by it's in what they have in right now is they've designed the facility. They have a USDA loan, gone through the process, have the land, and in the final review of it, they're short on their end of funding to secure the USDA loan.
So
And Mr.
just for
Co-Chair,
clarification, will this be owned and operated by the city of Lander?
That's my understanding.
and Mr. Co-Chair, what was the source of funds again?
It would come out of the existing 50 million in local government.
And Mr. Co-Chair, don't we have an application process for that? And aren't those applications being evaluated and staffed
That-
now?
Mr. Chairman, that is exactly correct. And it would have to follow the process. This would just design it for, they would have to meet those qualifications and fit. And of that, the $7.5 million would be set aside for this type of facility.
And I believe the application process closes on January 23rd.
Next Monday.
Yeah, so Mr. Co-Chair, it's really not an application process. It's earmarking for this particular project. My community is working hard. They've followed they're coloring within the lines. They've submitted their application. They got turned down once. They're going in again. I don't know about other communities, but you know, we're playing it straight. I appreciate your passion for the project, and I've seen what the great good that memory care units can do. But there's a lot of projects in a lot of communities that those people are all standing in line with the best of intentions. I just, what do I say to them when they come and say, well, how come you push that one ahead of us when we're out here in the cold with our applications?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
what I would say is, as of to date, there are no applications for this money other than water and sewer.
Well, I would further submit that this particular project is not identified. So anyone that wants to do a memory care unit and submit an application would be considered for.
That's right.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Co-Chair, they can submit it, but their name won't be on an earmark of $7.5 million. Which pot of money did you say nobody else has applied for?
Local government.
To date, local governments, the only applications for those funds are applications that were in the water and sewer funds that have changed their applications over that. That was as of noon today.
And by the way,
Mr.
just
Co-Chair,
to refresh your memory, we specifically on those local government funds moved all of the water projects as to the lesser priorities.
absolutely.
So
Right, and so the city of Sheridan just voted for 4 applications Monday night to go into the local government support projects. You know, I guess I should have known that I should just put their names on all 4. Probably everybody here's got projects going in. This one's going to go to the front of the line. It's worthy, I'm sure, but I just, I've got to be fair to my own constituents and all the other towns. I'm sorry. I can't support it.
Well, that's fine. And frankly, if you have 4 projects from Sheridan, then you probably have a good chance of getting one. Well, we'll see. Further discussion on the motion. Further discussion on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No,
That motion carries.
Don, make a note of that one, please.
All right, any other further motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I would move that in Agency 101, that of the EPE funds that have already been appropriated, to the extent that they are not used, that the judicial branch may repurpose those funds for its judicial branch mental health initiative.
Second,
Moving second. Any discussion? Any questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Any further motions?
Mr. Chairman?
Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we add language that says for the additional dollars that we're adding to the water and sewer, as well as the Health and Human Services capital construction, that the money will be used to continue with the existing applications, and no new applications will be accepted for these projects or for this new allocation.
Mr. Co-Chair,
Go ahead.
question. I thought that that's what Director Scoggins said they're going to do, and I thought that's what the governor proposed.
It's just not in the.
It's just not, yeah, we're
Okay,
just
second,
essentially.
Second.
confirming. Question? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Any further motions? Any further motions? Are we there?
Anything else, Don?
Go ahead.
Chairman, I do have a couple of technical
Oh,
items.
please, yeah.
Our first one is on page 30 of the bill.
30?
Excuse me, page 18 of the bill, footnote 30.
Go ahead.
Excuse me, it's page 17, footnote 30.
Okay,
During the testimony, the executive branch indicated that $225,000 was available for planning for these food distribution, and they wanted to add 25,000 to that 3 million for grants. So it's just shifting those 25,000 from planning to implementation.
Yeah, my note says 225,000 is already under contract.
Correct. So on line 10, we should change 250 to 225.
Okay.
so moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, on footnote, on page 16. Oh, sorry. I have my footnotes and my pages off. Page 9, footnote 16.
Hang on a minute.
Okay, that goes to 93, is that right?
Yes, line 8 should be 93 rather than 63 million.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Nice motion, Don.
Mr. Chairman, that's all of our technical motions. We did email all members. But we can run through, I believe there are 4 items that members had talked about.
Why don't you just run through them? Fresh our memories.
At one point, there was some interest in reestablishing the PACE program. I would note that we reached out to the state budget department, and they did not believe that it would qualify for ARPA dollars.
Okay, next.
The next item was maybe addressed by your prior motion, but to add priority language in the water and local government programs, that the funds be used for housing and economic development.
Go ahead.
That was in the local government.
Local government, capital construction, the general pot of 50 million.
Yeah, no, that was mine.
Okay.
Never mind.
Go ahead.
Thanks for remembering though.
Mr. Chairman, there was also some discussion of revisiting the affordable housing recommendation requested by 15 million that may have been addressed in the $5 million
I believe so.
motion.
Okay,
I believe that is all.
okay,
Thank you.
go ahead. Okay, any other motion? Seeing none.
Move the bill.
We haven't moved the bill. have we? As amended. The bill, all those in favor say aye.
Hang on a minute.
Go ahead. Well, go ahead, Don.
Mr. Chairman, your choice. You can, it's a roll call vote if you want to vote on the bill now with today's conceptual amendments, of which there are about 8 or 9. Or we can write it. It'll take us a while. And you can see the text before you vote on it, roll call. Either option. is
So, Mr.
acceptable.
Co-Chair, I think we ought to just roll call and add on a conceptual, and what'll happen is they'll finish the draft. They'll provide the draft to the co-chair and I. We'll circulate it. If we have any changes or corrections, technical only, then we can make those without taking further action.
I'm seeing heads nodding. Yeah. I see 5 heads nodding. I think we're okay. with that.
Okay, so let's go back. As amended, all those in favor
No, we have to call the roll.
in the bill first, say aye. Just the amendments.
Oh,
I'm just recertifying, clarifying all the amendments. Say aye. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Move the bill.
Moved and seconded as amended, roll call.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is on 23 LSO 0410 formal draft 1.0 as amended. Representative Henderson. Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood.
Aye.
Representative Stiff.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Zwanitzer.
Aye.
Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Nethercott. Senator Salazar. Co-Chairman Kinsky.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is adopted. House bill or Senate
Will
file?
be House. Okay,
Wait
next,
a minute. Why?
because you get Capcom.
We may never finish with that, Capcom.
Okay, Capcom.
Hang on a minute, Bob. Let me shuffle some stuff around here. Okay, hang it, bear with me.
Don, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, there might be some questions. Recall you marked these bills up, both of them originally in December. At that time, you provided for public comment on that last day.
Correct. I mean, in other words, they had been commented on publicly already. That was my understanding, and that this is just a workup. But before we go on, even though we passed it, is there any public comment on the ARPA bill? Because it will still be amended. In fact, the ARPA bill will come back to the House because and be assigned to appropriations, and we will work it. It'll pass through here one more time for public comment. And the same is true for the Capcom bill. It will go to the Senate and then be referred to the Senate appropriations. And so public comment will be available on the Capcom bill at that time as well. So there's multiple opportunities still to do that. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Richard Garrett, a citizen of Wyoming, resident of Cheyenne, and I appreciate restoring $5 million in ARPA funding for workforce housing. But that's still $10 million short of what the governor proposed. And so we will work to see if we can get the rest of that amount restored
And
as well.
just so it's known, I think how much is available still in ARPA that we did not appropriate? About 25 million, I believe. So there's, and we did that intentionally so that the floor can have additional opportunities.
I look forward to helping
All right,
them realize that opportunity, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
okay. Any other public comment? So before we go into the CapCon, is there any public comment on CapCon before we work it one more time? Janine, come on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Janine Bateski from Teton County. I won't take a lot of your time because you've all heard me many times talk about this, but we really need your help. In addition to what you've heard in the past about the fact that we have 825 rooftops coming on, we didn't realize that the town had approved 300 bedrooms that are going to be behind our district office that will house employees from a new hotel that's being built on Millward Street. That hotel is allegedly to be complete in 2024. So we desperately need your help. As you all know, we went forward to our community and they passed a $16 million SPET approval to pay for 43% of the building. So we would appreciate any assistance that you could give us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? We'll close public comment. The bill's already been moved, but so let's forward with the amendments for CapCon. I would entertain a motion from the floor. Motion from the floor on Cap. Motion from the floor on Cap.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to transfer any unexpended money from the Thyra Thompson Building Project to the State Construction Department's contingency fund.
Second.
Moving second is, does everyone understand the motion? Go ahead. All right. We're going to take a short break.
3.2.
They actually did it right.
Yeah. God dang. Wait, I thought, Jesus. I know.
Um,
And could you repeat the last motion?
I don't think there was a motion.
Yeah, there was.
Oh,
Tom.
what was the motion?
It was to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second,
Yeah, Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, I
please.
would move to transfer any unexpended money from the Thyra Thompson Building Project to the state construction or SBC contingency.
second,
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other motions,
Mr. Chairman,
please?
I would move to increase for the Department of Construction, 500,000 for the DFS building in Lander. This is due to some additional requirements been identified by the Department of Construction.
Second,
Move in second. Everyone understand the motion? Do people understand what it's for? You want to give an explanation of the building? Or- Okay.
yeah, I think we're all pretty familiar with,
all
I
right.
think we're all familiar with that facility by now.
Well, this is not for a facility. This is for Department of Family Services.
Yeah,
And it's a remodel of a building that's on the campus. of
Yep.
this department.
Yep.
Everyone understand? All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other motions? Please.
I'd like to add $3.5 million to the Wyoming Business Council to be allocated for the city of Riverton who's interested in having a winter recreation center. They've got land ready to be donated. They've got funds ready to be donated. And so these would require a one-to-one match from any source. And they would need to be encumbered by June 30th of 2024.
Move in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those, Don, question?
Mr. Chairman, just a clarification. Do you want this to be a generic or do you? That's how we've done it in the past, brother. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Could you clarify what a generic means?
Mr. Chairman, we typically do not appropriate funds to entities not under the direct or absolute control of the state. We provide grant programs and the requirements can be quite narrow.
Sheridan's got a shot.
And Mr. Chairman, so let me, if I may do that again, that we would do $3.5 million to the Wyoming Business Council to be granted out for a winter recreation center at requirement of one-to-one match, and any entity securing that would have to have it encumbered by June 30th of 2024.
Second,
all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other motions,
Mr. Chairman,
please?
we, in this committee's last meeting, we set aside $34 million for an office building in Riverton. What the practice of this body has been then when we do those is to create a task force to identify the agencies, location, and help work with the agencies and the Department of Construction to give the legislative branch, because once we appropriate this, it goes to the executive branch. And so we want to stay to be connected in this. And so this would create a task force for the development of the Riverton office building. Footnote in the bill for 3 House members, 3 senators, the director of the department, the state construction department or his designee, staffed by the state construction department, and the director or the designees of the agencies currently, the state agency currently in Riverton. This would appropriate $50,000 to pay legislators daily pay and per diem and other members per diem. And we would study the agency needs, building location. Purchase of existing space would also be considered.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
just refresh my recollection. In these kind of circumstances, how do we pick this 3 House members and the 3 senators?
Speaker and president.
Okay. So I can support this as long as we're clear, I'm not going to be on this task.
Yeah, typically it's from community members or very interested folks that around. Yeah.
For to not putting me on the task force.
And so, I mean, this is the same task force essentially that did the Casper office building, and it's, I mean, it makes a big difference in terms of the quality of the building, the workmanship. It's just it's a neat thing to do. And it speeds up the program and gets it done faster.
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Next, any other motions?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Stitt.
I would move that $3 million be appropriated to Agency 85, Wyoming Business Council, for the rehabilitation of a historic building in a historic coal mining community with a population greater than 10,000 for the purposes of downtown revitalization, with a 1-to-1 match from any source, which funds are to be encumbered by June 30th of 2024.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
just a point of clarification with Representative Stith. I consider Sheridan a coal mining community.
As it is.
Okay. We have an old bank downtown too.
Good. Do you want to make that 7 million?
It's your application.
Mr.
Please,
Chairman,
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, what will this bank building be used for? Is it just a museum, or are we going to occupy it with the state, or?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, thank you so much for the question. It's my understanding that the purpose will be a multi-purpose, where there'll be an educational component to be used, I believe, in part by the community college. There may also be uses for makerspace potentially for that in the historic downtown area.
Go ahead.
So Representative Stith helped me because I thought there had already been an effort to do some of this and to stabilize. Am I missing something there?
Mr. Chairman, yes, this building, a particular building, which would be an eligible, subject for this appropriation. In the early 1900s, the city of Rock Springs has already put in a total of approximately $3.8 million into it already, of which a large part was subject of a Wyoming Business Council grant. So the city's put in about $1 million of its own money into this project. And what the state of this particular structure right now is that it's been structurally stabilized, roof is good, and the facade has been restored to its historic condition. The interior, however, is not usable. So they're halfway across the river right now.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
is one of these prior ones indicated some in-kind contribution to the property itself would count towards the match. Is that true here?
Mr. Chairman, no, it is not the intent. The intent would be that this would be a
New dollars.
new dollars.
Come up with cash.
New
And the 3 million is actually a little under half of what's needed. It's about, the estimate's about 6.5 right now.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
That motion carries.
Done.
Any other motions? Please.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we allow and I don't know maybe allow is not the right word, but we authorize the state construction department access to the prison savings account to be used for the demolition of the north unit at the Rollins Penitentiary and the demolition of the administration building at the Wyoming Honor Farm, which would also allow them to move the IT infrastructure in that vacant admin building to an appropriate place within the campus.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman, I
Go
thought
ahead.
we rated the prison account already.
There's $38 million.
Oh, man. Okay, we can rate it multiple times. Okay, sorry, question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I'd also like to give authorization to the Board of Land Commissioners to pursue land opportunities for a future prison building in building sites,
in the vicinity of
in,
Rollins One.
in future building sites.
All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman, can we actually get it on stable, non-expansive soils this time?
That's all.
It's a good
You-
idea.
you think?
So do we need to put that in the motion?
So you may recall, Mr. Co-Chair, that we did it back when we were in the process of salvaging the existing. We located approximately 3 or 4 different site locations, all basically north of the city. That and we were about to acquire one of those, but then we were able to actually go in and refurbish the prison for a lot less than originally anticipated. But we know that the life of the current prison is probably no more than another 20 to 30 years.
Sounds like a sentence.
So we're just thinking now that it's going to be cheaper now than it will be, and we have the available funds, and we're using the prison funds for the prison, so we thought it was appropriate.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
and I failed to, and I apologize, but this conversation has taken place with the senator and the representative from the district that the prison's in, and also had included in this conversation, the director of Department of Construction and the director for Department of
Did we
Corrections.
get a second? Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
in our last meeting on this, on the CapCon bill, we appropriated up to 39, whatever that number was, of reversions from the Department of Health's reversions to the State Construction Department for the demolition of the state hospital. I'd like to amend that amount. There just isn't that amount that's going to be reverted in that time frame. And so just as everybody looks at that and say, there's all this money, there just isn't as we do it on the floor. And so as we try to present this accurately, I'd like to remove that down up to and change that up to 15 million.
Second.
Move in second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Please, Representative Swanson.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move, get an appropriation for $4 million from the general fund and give it to the Office of State Lands and Investment. The purpose would be to build a pedestrian walkway for the safety of the pedestrians for a large outdoor rodeo.
For large outdoor one.
Rodeo.
I think do you have that written amendment?
And there is an amendment on everyone's table for the specifics and where it would go in the bill.
Just have a second.
So this also includes a 1-to-1 match, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct, a 1-to-1 match.
And it reverts after June 30, 2025, if it's not encumbered.
What's it going to go over?
That is correct.
What will it go over?
I-80 or I-25.
I-25.
Be a big overpass.
And we do have the land for it.
Okay. Move and seconded. Question being called. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No,
That motion carries.
done.
I think one of your senators voted in favor of that, or 2 of them.
Yep. I just like to keep track. I'm that way.
Any other motions? Representative Walters.
And there is some language discussing the community colleges and military campuses. And it's footnote B, and I would make a motion to remove footnote B
Hang on, let us find it first.
on page 10 of the bill,
Line,
line 1, 2, and 3, page 10, Romanet B.
remind me what this is for. Mr. Co-Chair, trying to remember what this is.
Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an allocation of $25,000 or an appropriation rather to the community colleges for community colleges with military that have been recognized as being military friendly, to allow them to purchase military memorabilia and I shouldn't say memorabilia, military
Designation.
no, not designation.
Close enough.
The word just escaped me.
But the purpose of the motion is,
Art, military art recognizing service and sacrifice.
right, yeah. And so the motion is to do what?
To remove Romanet B on the top of page 10,
Mr. Chairman.
Which is what?
which divides it, that 25,000 8 ways. And this just gives the commission the ability to allocate it however they see fit versus us dictating that it needs to be divided equally.
Okay, do you understand the motion now?
Yeah, let me think about it. I guess it's okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, their motion carries. Any other motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
moving on to page 11 of the bill. I would move that I move to remove Romanet C in lines 4, 5, and 6 on page 11.
Moved and seconded, discussion. Please
The
explain.
issue with this is these projects were approved last year in the capital construction bill. And so the university has started raising funds for them, and it's really difficult to go to their donor base and say, we'd like you to donate to this project that has been approved by the legislature once, and now it suddenly will have to be approved a second time by the legislature. And so we approved the projects last year, and by including this language, it really sends a mixed message on the approval of these projects.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So what happened last year, as I recall, is we were getting hung up on allocation to the University of Wyoming, and we agreed, the Senate agreed, to allocate money, and the university would decide one of 3 projects they're going to spend it on. Now we find out we authorize these projects and we have to fund them, which was not at all the intention of what we did last year. So to me, to say, I just think, based on my recollection of what we agreed, it's not that we authorized them and now we need to fund them. That was, we just came to an agreement and the university was supposed to pick one project. Second, given the status of the dorm project, given the fact they haven't even finished the science center, we felt very strongly on this that they just should not start another project until they get that dorm finished. And that the money that we agreed to put towards this was premised on that they were going to slow down because some of us opposed this much spending and this much construction from the beginning. They're in the middle of a law school construction project. Now they're going to take on the pool, the west stands, haven't finished the dorms. So I just, this was part of it, us working together to get that 70 million in there. And now it's being pulled out after the 70 million's in. And I just feel like it's wrong to remove that footnote after we worked so hard to forge an agreement.
Mr. Chairman.
Please, go ahead.
I would agree with all of your statements made by the good senator. And where I fully agree is in last year's capital construction bill, we authorized $50 million for the University of Wyoming towards stated projects. And those are the stated projects. That is our approval to move forth with those projects. If we did not want to include those projects a year ago, we should not have listed those projects, because they are in that language in last year's capital construction bill. It discusses the need for a matching requirement. It discusses all of that sort of stuff. To me, I guess I don't know how else we would approve them or say that they're not approved, but university go decide which ones you want to do. I fully agree with the senator. Last year, 50 million for these projects. Board of Trustees, you decide which ones you want to do. But that is, in my view, the legislature approving the projects that were on last year's capital construction list, and the West Stands, the natatorium, the law school, and were all 3 of those projects for that money a year ago. As to the $70 million that we have allocated for this year, the footnote in footnote B, I'm only referencing C in my motion. In footnote B, it fully states, and I concur, the funds will be used for the dorm project first. Then they might be used for these other projects. I'm not trying to remove any of that language. I concur that the dorm projects are of the utmost importance. I'm simply saying that a year ago, we approved these projects, whether directly or indirectly, we approved these projects. And to now put this second layer on there makes it very difficult for the university to go out to their donor base and try and raise funds for anything, whether it be academic or athletic or any other type of project. When we say we're going to do something and then a year later begin to change our minds because for whatever reason, it's tough to gain trust in that donor base when that's the situation. That's why the motion is to simply remove on page 11, subsection C, which is lines 4 through 6. Just simply saying it requires a second approval by the Wyoming legislature. I believe we approved it last year, whether knowingly or unknowingly. When we put that $50 million out there for these projects, that is the legislative approval of the projects.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this accurately to my neighbor to the right. So on the 70 million that we approved earlier this year, it's in this CapCon or in this budget, we said it couldn't be used for anything else but the dorms until the dorms, if there is anything left of that after the dorms were left over, then they could use it for these other projects. Did I understand that correctly?
Mr. Chairman, that is what footnote B states. I think you're spot on.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I won't argue the first point. The second is this was part of a hard fought compromise by which we swallowed hard and agreed to the 70 million with the understanding that construction would be postponed until further legislative authorization. Now, going back on the deal, you know, that's the way it's going to be. It's the way it's going to be, but I feel like
So, you know, I would.
we had an
respectfully
agreement.
disagree. The
We
idea
had an
that-
agreement,
that
Mr.
they
Chairman.
postpone construction, of any project, was never the intended purpose in our discussions, as I recall.
Mr. Co-Chair, I think the language that we agreed upon on lines 4, 5, and 6 is pretty clear. Further legislative action shall be required before expending funds on a project specified in subsection B of this section. I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they are basically in direct conflict with each other. We're appropriating, they say you can't do anything else. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. That's why we're doing a round robin. Okay,
Question?
question being called. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
That
Gone.
motion carries. All right, any other motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
still on page 11, moving down to line 8, Romanet number 2. I move to delete Romanet number 2 on line 8. Page 11.
Wait a minute. Line 11.
And then I'll explain it.
What
Go ahead,
page
explain.
Is it, hang on a minute. Let's find out where it is. 11. Okay, so Mr. Co-Chair.
Go ahead.
That's not what I understood that you wanted to do. I think you wanted to clarify as opposed to completely delete. I don't want to come back next year and find out we authorized this project. Now we have to fully fund it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll explain. I believe I've
Go ahead.
received a second. So the purpose of this language is overly restrictive. It does not allow the university to even put major maintenance dollars into this. And it could also be interpreted to say that they can't put any programmatic dollars into this facility because it restricts all state dollars from going into the AMK ranch. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, is to make sure that we don't unintentionally restrict the university from using their own dollars, not new dollars, their own dollars for programmatic or major maintenance or anything of the sort. I don't know what all activities they do up there, but by having this very restrictive language of no state funds are appropriated or shall be expended for this project as it reads, just I think really ties the hands of the university and the ability to utilize this facility that they've been utilizing for the last 50 years or something to that effect.
Mr.
And so
Coach, it may be an over technical interpretation of that language, but we're not appropriating dollars for the.
Mr. Co-Chair, not this year.
Yeah.
I'll find out next year that we authorized it and the university wants it fully funded. That seems to
We
be the
can't,
way.
we can't stop what's gonna happen next year. except-
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I would further say in this capital construction bill, the tables on page 10 clearly indicate that it's private revenue only, private source only for the 10 million. There is no board of trustees can go do. We're not authorizing any other dollars to this project. It's simply an authorization for that and then making sure that they can utilize internal sources as needed.
Senator Groom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a tough one since this is my own county, but my intent, or at least the intent I felt when we proposed this language, talked about it, was to do exactly what the good chairman here was talking about. We want to focus on getting the stuff done that we need to get done and do it in a cost-effective way. And we found that there's been trouble. I know it happens, and it's not, it could be inflation, it could be this, it could be that, all the reasons why. There's a myriad of them. But to try to focus in, our friends at the university, to say, let's get done what we've set out to get done, dorms first. That was what the whole impetus about this about. I agree with all the conversations that occurred up to this point about the last two subjects, except for that part. And so that was why I'm sticking with on this. No money, to make sure it's crystal clear. No dollars allocated to AMK Ranch until we get our house in order and get all our other projects complete. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Question?
Question being called. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
That motion
None.
carries. Okay, any other motion? Okay,
That's quite a bit of work for
no,
technical.
you got another sheet for us?
Mr. Chairman, I'll run through. I think some of these are no longer at issue. Others, I believe, are.
Okay.
There was an expression of interest which eliminates a sizable portion of the bill to shift the maintenance and operation of the AMK Ranch back to the state land board and not the state parks. So
That's Ranch A.
Ranch A, excuse me, Ranch A.
Mr. Co-Chair,
It starts with an
Mr. Co-Chair, that's me. Thank you, Don.
A. Okay.
I had made a motion of $1 million appropriation for repair and infrastructure at Ranch A and said transfer to state parks, figuring that would get the work done. It turns out SLIB just contracts with state parks to do the work. So we can strike that portion of it that says and transfer Ranch A to state parks. They're talking about it. They're trying to work it out, but right now it could stay right there with SLIB. So my motion would be to strike that portion of my original motion, which specified that Ranch A was to be transferred to state parks.
Okay, moving second. Any discussion?
I don't know that I completely understand what we're doing. If the chairman could explain to me. So I believe the motion was when we done the bill was to move it to state parks.
The motion was it was such a bad motion. I remember the co-chair laughing at me about how poorly it was constructed. You
I wasn't
remember that too.
laughing.
Yeah, you're laughing with me. It was $1 million for repair of Ranch A and for Ranch A to be transferred to state parks, because I thought that had to happen to get the work done, and it does not. Yeah, SLIB can do that work. It turns out they just contract with state parks to get the work done. So we don't need to transfer the ranch in order to get the work done.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure I understand the motion. So is the motion to change the language on page 12, lines 5 through 13 to delete that section entirely? Is that the motion, or have I misunderstood the motion?
Let me get there.
I think there's still an appropriation of dollars. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interject, the $1,000 appropriation
1 million.
on page 8 would remain. Of 1 million, excuse me. Section 6 would be removed in its entirety. And on the bottom of page 4 and all of page 5 through line 20 would also be removed. So the transfer would no longer be part of the bill.
So moved.
Moving second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries.
Got a page out of a bill.
Go ahead, Don.
Mr. Chairman, there were several different proposals, so I won't be specific about the use of a previously appropriated $49 million.
Well, that's for a later day.
Yeah, later day.
believe one of them has been addressed with the reduction in the appropriation for the state hospital demolition. Oh, and I have two more, I think. Forgive me. Don't want to miss an opportunity for a member.
We appreciate you.
There was a discussion as to the current residence of the chief executive and
Later day.
Mr. Chairman, there was also a discussion of a structural deficit in the city's capital, in the downtown, a hole, if you will.
No, that's, that's done.
Oh,
WHOLE.
Mr. Chairman, that clears the desk. Thank you.
So I just see that the president came in and I want to confirm that that moving not transferring the property to state parks is accurate.
Mr. Chairman, it is.
Okay, great.
Did we have any technical amendments?
I think we, well, this will be the same as the.
But last time we had some technical.
We've gone through it once.
Did
Go
we
ahead,
already
Rob.
do our technical amendments on this?
Mr. Chairman, there was only one, and it was actually there was no need because of another amendment.
Because we just
Okay.
removed it.
You removed the error. I do have one more
Go ahead.
item, and that is just an explanation more than anything. The governor's budget request included approximately $7.5 million for escalation, de-escalation.
Right.
And you have added and subtracted projects. For example, there is no.
So you need to modify that to be consistent with the dollar.
Well, we want to know whether you want to. So for example, there's no escalation, de-escalation on the Riverton office building.
Well, we wouldn't need it for that.
You don't want to add, okay.
What dollar amount would, oh, because
For
it
the
was
30.
added, so it still stays at 7.5.
No, that's 34.
Yeah, but the escalation, de-escalation stays at 7.5.
Right. Well,
You weren't proposing to reduce it.
Well, I was offering that discussion both ways.
yeah.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, so that 34 million is what we're talking about. And so the way I understand it, the Senate colleagues can correct me, but we've parked that money right now. And that'll get us started. But I don't think there was we didn't contemplate putting an escalation factor in there. At this time, we can come back and address that once we know what known costs might be.
When we do level one, level
Mr. Chairman,
two. Go ahead.
for clarification, I think we're talking about the statewide inflation reserve, not the escalation, or is it?
No, Mr. Chairman, the statewide inflation is for previously approved projects, not in this bill. The escalator, de-escalator was for projects in this bill. And it sounds like they are not subject to that.
I think that's right,
Yeah,
right? I think that's right. So we want to do this, any more technical? So we want to do the same thing as the last time. Go ahead and move the bill.
We'll move the bill, we'll vote on it, and then we'll circulate it. And if there's any technical records, we'll let you know. Let's go. Everyone understand that? Is that all right?
Did already.
No, we're gonna vote on it as amended.
Last time you had us vote on all the amendments as a bunch.
All the amendment as a bunch. All those in favor say aye.
Aye,
As opposed, that motion carries.
move the bill.
Bill and moved as amended. Roll call.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the call vote is on 23 LSO 0409, committee formal draft 1.0. Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood. Representative Stiff.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Zwanitzer Dave.
Aye.
Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Garu.
Aye.
Senator Nethercott. Senator Salazar.
No.
Co-Chairman Kinski.
Aye,
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is adopted. Senate file or House bill?
You want it?
House.
Senate file. We'll take it if you don't want.
no, that's good. I want to try and get the work as evenly divided as possible, although you got the lighter load. We gave you some tough ones on that other stuff.
it.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
Mr.
before we
Chairman.
Break?
Mr. Chairman, before we do, I think it would be appropriate for us to recognize the good First Lady of the Senate, Mrs. Driscoll. We appreciate all that you do and keeping in protecting and guiding our president.
Don? I gotta go.
Mr. Chairman, I did have maybe or just general announcements.
Oh, we've got bills to do too. Well, actually, that's me.
Right.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, the first item is the budget was sent to you. It will also be provided in hard copy in the other room as you leave tonight, or we can start circulating that
Yeah,
for
please.
you to read. You're scheduled to meet, I believe, Thursday morning for a final vote on that to identify any concerns with language.
Is that on our calendar?
It has not been noticed yet. That was just based on Friday's
Let
discussion.
me make sure I didn't set something in the middle of it.
We need, we'll do a little quick walkthrough and review it before we release it to
You guys, let me
everybody.
see that schedule.
Here it comes. That's right. Technical only. Other than education.
Where's that schedule that we put together for the rest of the week? So agreed, we'll get together. I just gotta make sure Thursday morning works.
That's fine.
We haven't booked something else and announced it.
Mr. Chairman, two other requests of the committee, and I just wanted to give you an outline as to timing. The committee had requested an update of the long-term profile. We will do that, but it's better to do it with the CapCon bill as you approved it and with the budget bill as you approved it. So we'll have that ready for you next week. We won't have that ready this week.
Okay.
Secondly, we will also establish a time next week, just because we'll be writing these bills that you have approved this evening, and we'll provide a informal opportunity to discuss any committee questions and another overview of Craig, if there is still interest in having.
Yeah, again, I'm sorry.
Sorry, during the presentation of Craig, there was a request to have an additional informal training on Craig or informal Q&A on Craig. We can set that up for next week if there is still interest in doing that. If it's passed and it's no longer of interest, next week provides us a little bit of an opportunity because it will be a bit of a down week for us between the markup and floor, which will begin on January.
Mr. Co-Chair, I just think it would be a good thing for this committee to do, particularly for the newer members, to kind of do a walkthrough to an educational process on the.
I don't think you can get enough training,
Yeah.
not on this stuff.
So Don, why don't you pick a time and communicate with Dave and I, let's do that.
And that's it.
Okay.
Okay,
Anything-
Thursday morning's open.
Okay, so Thursday morning's fine.
Thursday morning, JAC
Or-
for budget bill.
8 o'clock.
Well, we don't have to have it done this session.
Anything else for JAC this evening?
I'd like to thank the staff for all their hard.
Yeah,
work.
Don, once
Greatly
again, as
appreciate
always,
it.
thanks.
And Kevin, we appreciate your help as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Even if you won't get up when other people sit at the table.
All right, we'll stand and adjourn till